Okay, so this is probably what a typical mind map looks like. Does everybody else's mind map looks a little bit like this?
A little bit, yeah.
Mine's more spidery.
More spidery, but basically you've got like all of these different colored areas and, okay, that's good. Okay, so when we try and figure out what we're going to do with this, what I like to do is go back into our partners and then we talk through the process. Because by talking through the process, we understand where we started. So, Tammy, Tammy, where did you start in this process?
I started with the basic concept of the book, which was anxiety and panic, right in the center there. Red representing, you know, panicky stuff.
Okay, so you started in the middle, which
Yes.
is a usual place to start, and you
Yeah.
started with the subject of your book, which is anxiety and panic,
Yeah.
and then you've got the what is it, why, who, fear, symptoms, and then did you go to my story? Was that the next place?
Yeah, what I did was I was trying to get to the underlying pieces, which were fear and trauma, and they're in red. That created the symptoms. And then I went, okay, so what do I have to say about it? Well, I guess tell my story, so that's why the red continued. And
Okay.
behind all of that is stress and overwhelm was a lifelong accompaniment, let's say.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you started off really kind of defining what anxiety and panic is, and then the next place you kind of went to was my story. Okay, so then with your story, this is you just gone to drugs and everything that you did with drugs and specialists, hospital group, support group, research and doctors. What are the blue bits? CBT, books, CDs, are those are just the resources
Okay.
that you use?
So what I realized was that drugs shouldn't have been in that group. I mean, it was part of the experience, so it was in that group, but it's I think it's a real big problem in this area of healing. And so that's why all that brown came way later, right at the end. But
Okay.
anyway, the hospital group was cognitive behavioral therapy. The research that I did was books, CDs, internet, constant searching. Part of my story was what happened at the doctors. They're prescribing meds like candy, and yeah, the only thing that I'm missing, and I just realized it, is rehab.
Rehab.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's just put that in.
Yeah,
'Cause
with
this
doctors.
This is what will happen when you are working with your partner. Something like that will come up, because then when in the process of actually talking through your mind map, this will happen, right? You'll go, oh, I just realized I didn't include that.
Yeah,
So
and it's huge.
right.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you've got pens so that you can just fill in gaps like that. Okay. All right. So then after your story, what happened? Where did you go after that?
Well, the drugs was a whole category on its own, and although all those things are serotonin reuptake inhibitors, I just name them.
Okay.
MAOIs, they're antidepressants, right?
Okay.
All of those things, beta blockers, benzodiazepines, that has a huge, horrible, spiky thing around it because it was so damaging.
Okay.
And what I realized is all of these drugs are a missed opportunity for people to heal their soul.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
You won't get to the bottom of what's wrong with you
Okay.
on them. Yeah.
So basically, within this process,
Yeah.
this led to this, because when you're talking about your story, you then really honed in on the subject of drugs,
Yes.
and then by honing in on the subject of drugs, and you were listing those drugs, and then through doing that, you got the realization that these drugs were all basically a missed opportunity
Yes.
for actually healing the
Yeah.
soul. Okay, so then where does this piece? Did this piece come in? Like, is that?
No, that was the very last two little things I put in. Those,
Okay.
that's last, purple's last.
So what did you do next?
Next I did the orange up in the top.
Orange.
And what I wanted to, I said, okay, so there's my story, so what did I learn? And
Right.
those are all the things that I know that contribute to people feeling badly. Anticipatory anxiety, the whole thing about flight and fight. And, well, actually, from flight and fight comes physical symptoms. There's a personality type. and adrenaline release, catastrophizing, accelerated thinking. They're all things that I really know well.
Okay.
So they have to be included.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to be very impactful for people who are suffering it and don't have a name for it.
Okay, and so then after this orange area, what
Yes.
happened next?
Well, once I had learned all of these things, I started to look at the whole bottom purple area is about healing.
Okay,
These are all the things that I learned about either through all of my research or things that I just invented that helped so much. The wellness, wholeness in the bottom corner there is where I want everybody to get to. But in this whole journey, even after starting writing the book, something new came up, and that's why I added 2 little boxes, which is being improperly diagnosed and is this physiological or psychological? A
right.
big question people have to get the answer to before they know how to heal themselves.
Okay, cool. So interestingly enough, this tends to happen. It's difficult to explain. If that hasn't happened to you, don't worry. But usually what happens is people do start in the middle, and then they tend to go either anti-clockwise, right?
Ah.
Yeah, or they go clockwise, whichever way that is works for them.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, there is nearly always a flow the way that we work through this process, and then this is what this represents is effectively the flow of the book, which is a totally, that is just a very natural process. In this context, every time you've changed color, it basically has put all that content into one place,
Yes.
which could effectively be a chapter. Okay, so that this could be, this is laying the foundation of what anxiety and panic is.
Yeah.
So that could be chapter 1, or actually it could be an introduction as well. That's potentially what that could be. And then you go to your story and you talk about all of these elements that belong in the same place. So that could be chapter 1 or chapter 2, depending if this becomes an intro. And then you move into very nicely from drugs into more detail about drugs and actually what do these drugs mean and what did they do, and then you coming to the realization that it was a missed opportunity for healing the soul. And then you're continuing in your nice anti-clockwise direction through to this purple area, which you might find a bit thick for one chapter, right? Just when I look at what you've got here.
Well, I always had in mind 2 halves of a book.
Right, okay.
One spiritual and one practical.
And that would make perfect sense because you've got, this part, the top part would be part 1 and the bottom part would be part 2.
Yeah.
And then it's just a question of how would you divide these pieces into more manageable chunks, because what you basically want to do is aim for equal-sized chapters.
Yes.
So, so what that would do then is give you basically a chapter plan, and each one of these bubbles is effectively like a subheading. So if your working chapter title, for example, was Steps to Healing, so this chapter is Steps to Healing, is the working chapter, and then one of your subheadings would be, meditation, and then potentially a subheading from that would be breathing techniques, positive self-talk, healing touch. So you can imagine what you're effectively doing here is you're creating this writing plan, and you can almost literally pick a subject that you're going to write to, and then that gives you one piece that you can write.
Yes.
These are probably 500 words.
Easily.
500 words each, right?
Easily.
So if they were all 500 words each, then when you create a chapter plan, what you've basically got is 500 word assignments, and you don't even have to write it in this order,
Yes.
as long as you've got it written down into a plan. So what we do next is we take this mind map after we've done this kind of interpretation, which is a lot easier in this situation, speaking with your partner, and what I would have done, I didn't see anything extra, but generally speaking, when you go through this process, if you say, oh, I don't really need that, then that's when you would get a pen and just cross that out and say, actually, I don't need that. I put that in, but I don't really need it in the book.
Okay.
So it's the talking with your partner that actually helps you to understand anything you've forgotten and anything extra that has to go in. Okay?
So when writing a children's book, like I'm getting the flow, I did the same thing.
Mhm.
And all the little things for the extras, that's what you were saying could be in the back in terms of the parent.
Like a parent's guide.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parent-teacher guide.
Yeah, parent-teacher guide. So you would probably just have that, as one area that says parents-teacher guide, and then that's at the back of the book.
Okay. But if I had it on the mind map, it may
It-
just move to the.
Yeah, and it just, because you can, this is all the content for your book, right? It's
Right.
all on this one piece of paper. So all we're doing in this exercise is saying, is this the book, or is there something missing, or do we need to add anything to it, basically? So, but it's all in one piece, which makes it a lot easier. Does everybody understand that? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes,
excellent.
absolutely.
Good.
It's done.
It's
Book's
done. Okay, excellent. Good,
No, I
good,
mean,
good.
your book is right there.
It is.
Yes.
Your book is